All right, everyone, the drug war has been dealt a blow. That is, the battle here, at least, is over. The war has just barely begun. The war against the drug war is what we need to wage. I personally would go far further than this. I think that marijuana should be legal to an unlimited extent. It's literally just a plant. Most psychedelics should be legal to use. Everything should be decriminalized so addicts can seek treatment rather than be stigmatized and end up dead in an alley or thrown into a federal prison somewhere. You know, in order to feed their habit, they start dealing, and then you wonder why there's a systemic problem with like the opioid epidemic. Becomes an issue. Marijuana prohibition is now gone in Vermont. As of today, July the 1st, the new law kicks in. We are the first state to do this via legislative action in the normal proceedings that, states usually should take with regards to laws. In every other case, I think it's been a bureaucratic proposal at the state level or via executive action in order to gain full full legalization. Because in most states, you can only sell to dispensaries. Like adults, a person can't themselves just grow a plant in a fucking pot and, use it to supply their bud. In most of these states that are decriminalizing and legalizing, you can't do that. Small possession has been decriminalized in, I think, like 20 states now. And in those states where you can grow it all, you need to get like a license. Here you don't have to do that. We're the first state to actually fully legalize marijuana. If you're an adult, yeah, you can grow a couple of plants. It's up to 4 plants to make sure you're not like dealing. I believe you will be able to also separately get a license to grow more, and that's the sort of system that I thought should be imposed. If it's a small amount, if someone's only growing 1 plant so they and their friends can get together and fucking smoke some ganja and not have to pay street prices, and they can make sure, by the way, the weed isn't spiked, they can make sure that it's safe because they're the one growing it, that they shouldn't have to pay a penny to do that. It's like I can grow tobacco plants, but if I want to grow a whole field of tobacco, I might run afoul of some laws at some point. At some point, people are going to wonder what the fuck I'm doing and show up and say, well, you're obviously intending to distribute. Do you have a license? Are you a licensed tobacco distributor? No? Well, you're going to federal prison. But nobody cares if you grow a few plants. It's essentially the same policy. In some states, they don't do that. It's like in Ohio. The proposed marijuana legalization, so-called, that they were going to impose there, it didn't pass. It got shot down by the People on Ballot Initiative because pro-pod advocates realized it would create a state monopoly where only state dispensaries and one single state co-opted grower would be supplying the whole state. It'd still be illegal every other way. You could simply go to the dispensary, get it, and smoke it in your own home. So it's not legalization. When people say other states have legalized marijuana, in some cases it's not really legal. You can't grow it. You can't have only a certain amount. You can't purchase it from any random source. You can't move it around. You can't even carry it in public. That's not legalization. That's just, hey, you are able to access this material through a state monopoly. Here in Vermont, we'll have no state monopoly. And I can guarantee, since you can have up to 4 plants, some of that weed will be sold in others. This is going to, because of Vermont's law specifically, some Vermonters are going to be padding their income. It's probably going to help the state's economy. It's great for us that no other state is really legalizing in this way, but like Massachusetts, you can only get it through dispensaries. You can say you can, get a permit to grow, sell it to a dispensary. You can buy it from a dispensary. Otherwise, basically no one else is going to be making any money from it. In the state of Vermont, although it'll still be illegal to sell it, I'm assuming, I believe. Now, up to 4 plants, that's a considerable amount of pot. And any amount is decriminalized now. It's no longer considered a felony. I mean, drug trafficking would fall under federal laws. You're trying to drive it over into New York or something. It's interesting. We're used to drugs coming into Vermont. Now drugs will probably be hemorrhaging from Vermont. Like some people on the borders will be like, yeah, I got a couple pot plants. I can make a couple grand easy, of this really, really dank stuff that I've got. Or I can, just sort of sit here on it. I wonder what they're going to do. I'm not, by the way, encouraging that to be done, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen, I think. Marijuana prohibition never should have taken place. We look back at alcohol prohibition of a substance that actually is harmful. What happens? You prohibit it, people start getting drunk more. Because now you're getting bootleg liquor, the mafia is involved. It's not like, right now, some, very above ground, publicly available sort of tax purposes, everything else. very much above board, in line with government regulations for safety and everything. That's where you get, your whiskey distillery and your winery and stuff. That's where the alcohol comes from. During Prohibition, no, some dudes from the mafia teamed up with some hillbillies out in the hills, and they ran stills, and sometimes people went blind. And certainly if they were a drunk, they weren't seeking treatment. They didn't want to get thrown in prison as a degenerate or something, so it became a problem. I like a drink myself, but the thing is, alcohol is provably more addictive and provably more poisonous to the human body than most of these substances. I say we need to just end the whole drug war. Why stop at marijuana? Some people they're like happy hippies and they think that this is the end-all be-all. No, we need to legalize all of the psychedelic, spiritually important substances as well. That means things like psilocybin, things like the use of ergine and similar derived substances. Salvia divinorum has been banned in a lot of states. So I don't understand why. Having used it, it's like virtually non-toxic in easily acquired doses. It's very difficult in many of these substances. It is difficult to harm yourself with them. And do psychological harm, I think a big part of why people like freak out or get psychosis or a bad trip is because of paranoia about the cops busting down their door because they have drugs. Honestly, that's my speculation. I guarantee in the state of Vermont, there will be fewer bad marijuana trips. And then you've got as well, now Trump is the first pot president. They called Bill Clinton the first black president because he played saxophone or something, which was kind of in retrospect a little weird. And then they called Obama the first gay president simply because he didn't defend DOMA, which it didn't make any sense. He wasn't on the forefront. He was a civil union Democrat, and they still term, he's so gay friendly. It's like, no, not really. Trump didn't care before Obama didn't care. Trump should be labeled the first pot president. Because even though Jeff Sessions is a drug hardliner, it looks like Trump has sort of elbowed him and said, Jeff, come on. It's fucking marijuana. I've got friends that use medical pot. I already see what it does. I'm stone cold sober. Trump apparently doesn't even drink a beer and never even touched this stuff, really. He probably had like one glass of champagne 70 years ago. I'm 17 years ago. Yeah, that would be funny. The fetal alcohol syndrome at that point. But he's on board with medical marijuana. He said that, I think, a number of years ago. And sort of told the Republican Party they were being dumb on the issue, which I concur with. He's now, it seems, on board with at least federal decriminalization. That is, even on the federal level, if you're simply possessing pot, you got a plan or whatever, like Vermont or Colorado, the federal government's not going to do it. It's not going to raid dispensaries like it continued to do until the middle of Obama's second term. Obama got in trouble for this because he said, well, we're going to take a hands-off approach. The state's going to... But the thing is, he simply instructed bureaus not to enforce existing law. Again, it's like with the immigration issue. He never changed the law. He simply covered it up, a Band-Aid on a gaping wound by executive order, or he instructed bureaus under executive command not to enforce existing law because he felt, I'm a constitutional scholar and I feel it's probably unlawful to actually pass this law, so I'm no longer going to enforce it. He was derelict in his duty. Trump is actually attempting to tackle these issues via legislative action, which is much longer lasting, and another president can't just come along and get rid of it. Like, Trump may be not an anti-pot Republican, but let's say he decides not to run again. He says, well, Pence can do the job. Pence gets in there. He becomes president. It won't happen, but let's say that happens. Pence is obviously a drug warrior. He's an evangelocon. He could then turn around and say, well, respectfully, Mr. Trump, I disagree. I'm scoring out your executive order of non-enforcement of federal drug laws and go back to raiding dispensaries. Don't you see what the problem is? This is a problem. The Democrats want Trump to solve everything via executive order and just do what Obama did and just, be like, hey, I'm going to pick and choose what laws I enforce. It's a totally wrong way to run your country. So I'm glad the state of Vermont is legalized. And I say this, I haven't used marijuana in many years and probably never will again. I don't have a reason to use it and I don't derive any real enjoyment from it. I prefer drinking alcohol, caffeine, or chamomile. I even quit smoking, last October. It's coming in on a year. In a couple of months here, it'll be a year since I quit smoking, actually. So I'm happy about that. I think after 2 years, your risk of like heart disease, lung cancer and stuff is equivalent to a non-smoker, after you've quit for that long. So yeah, it's gonna be a great time. As for alcohol, I don't think I'm gonna quit that, but as far as marijuana goes, I never saw the justice. I mean, the government is supposed to represent the public good. at least insofar as it delves into, extending beyond very limited monarchism anyway. How does it help the public good to ban a fucking plant that never harmed anybody? Nah, it doesn't. All you're doing is throwing people in jail, inconveniencing them, fucking up what could be a massive economic boost to the United States. Why don't we legalize it federally and then grow it and sell it to Central America? Why don't we do that? In places where it's illegal, we can just smuggle it in. The state should even sponsor that happening, because it'd be like, hey, it's just a plant, quite literally. People all over the world smoke it. I think it is legal in a number of countries. We're not the only country that's having like this debate either. I know parts of Western Europe are thinking about it. The UK is being pressured to have medical marijuana, which I don't even think the UK doesn't even have medical pot yet, does it? Because I remember that that woman who was trying to bring in some cannabis oil was detained and had it confiscated. Says, well, my son has massive seizure disorders. I'm just going to go to Canada and get more pot, basically, and bring it back, and I'm going to keep doing that to make a point. At the very least, for medical purposes, where it's established there's medical benefit, even the FDA now admits that. Even the FDA is saying, yeah, there's marijuana derivatives that can help with seizure disorders. Well, then it shouldn't be on the top of the drug scheduling. Buy your own drug scheduling's sort of system. But the thing is, since drug scheduling began, it has never actually been accurate. Under the drug scheduling system, alcohol and tobacco should be fully illegal, marijuana should be absolutely decriminalized, and most psychedelics should barely be regulated, even some of the hard substances. So, it's like cocaine. Yeah, that certainly has pain relief benefits. They were using that as little drops and powders that you could use, liquid cocaine specifically, along with cannabis many times, and sometimes heroin, for pain relief for like babies that were teething and stuff. And very few people actually ended up dying from these things. Generally speaking, because of the dosage involved, being controlled, it basically worked. Not sure that it was the healthiest thing to be using, but you get the idea. That's about all. Peace out.